Hi there, this is Hyder Ali, doing A1 for intermediate computer graphics. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. And so for this assignment, I would use assets from the original Silent Hill on the PlayStation. Would have ended up just spending way too long on assets and making sure that they're perfect and not ended up doing this. So I just went with pre-existing assets and that'll all be cited. So let's go ahead and start off with number 1, which is our scene with no lighting. I did include the diffuse because otherwise the scene would just be black. We do have multiple objects around the scene, and as you can see, it's a pretty big scene. And we also have the snowfall that helps make the scene a bit more dynamic. Number 2 is our ambient lighting only. It's very low, but you can actually see that it is lit. This is the minimum lighting value that would be allowed in the scene. So at its darkest, an object would look like this. Number 3 is only our specular lighting, right? It's specular. It's pretty much what you expect. Number 4 is with the ambient. Not a huge difference, but you know, that little bit of extra brightness ensures that we don't have anything that would be pure black, which you might see in some of these objects in the corner. Go ahead and continue from here. Number 5 we'll check out in a moment. Number 6 is our diffuse color ramp. And so you'll notice that each of these colors, right, each individual value, R, G, and B, are using our tune 1D lit to snap each of these colors to a close approximate value. And it gives us this scene with far less colors and far less color complexity. We can do the same thing with our lighting. So here our specular lighting is on a color ramp. And so you'll notice that this has some banding in it. Number 8 is our warm color LUT, and we can compare that with number 4 to see that there is indeed a LUT being applied. Number 9 is cool. I actually like this one because one of the later Silent Hill games, Shattered Memories, takes place during a snowstorm. So it has a lot of blues in its color palette, and it kind of does look nice in this one. Plus, Shattered Memories is actually a remake of Silent Hill 1, so it kind of all works out well. And then for the classic movie appeal, I went with a black and white filter. And then I also use a bit of levels, if you're familiar with the tool in Photoshop, to make sure that our darkest colors are as dark as possible and our brightest colors are as bright as possible to give us that wide gamut of value. Last up, we have our custom shader. And this one is actually very different. You're going to notice quite a few things with this shader. So number 1, we have vertex snapping. So you're going to notice right along on here, and actually quite a few different places, our verts are snapping oddly. It looks a little weird. It's actually a limitation of the original PlayStation. It didn't support subpixel rasterization, so all verts were snapped to the nearest available pixel for rasterization. And so we've recreated that with some shader code that we'll look at the end. We also have affine texture mapping. You're going to notice that these garage doors, right, these are supposed to be straight lines, but they're not until you look at them straight on. The original PlayStation, when you had triangles at a bit of an angle, it didn't actually correct the perspective. And so you can look more into perspective correct texture mapping versus affine texture mapping if you're not familiar. But yeah, the PlayStation 1 didn't support this, and so neither do we. We also have vertex lighting. PlayStation 1 didn't support vertex lighting. All of our other ones are using fragment lighting or per pixel lighting, but for this one we're sticking with vertex lighting. It doesn't make a huge difference, but it is more authentic to the experience, and if there are any dynamic lights in the scene, you'd be able to see them. And of course, fog. We're calculating the depth of a vertex in view space to determine the amount of fog to mix into the color at the fragment. And we'll take a look at our shader code in just a moment. But yeah, the scene, honestly, I think it looks really nice and it's really authentic to the original PlayStation. And so for our shaders, we're only using one set of shaders. Here you can see our vertex snapping. Here's our code that aligns it to this grid. This grid has a pixel size that is similar to the original PlayStation's, but it's scaled up additively to fit a 16:9 resolution rather than a 4:3 resolution. We also have our depth calculations here for our fog and our lighting calculations for the vertex lighting happening here. ASC means ambient, specular, and custom, so that's what's happening, anything with the ASC. And then we can check out our Blindfong textured. Not actually Blindfong because sometimes it's using vertex lighting instead. So if you look for the ASC section here, you can see we're using a different set of UVs than normal to give us our UVs that don't have the perspective correction, and you can find that in the FS common input and also in our vertex shader common outputs, right? These are both set to no perspective. And we're using this set instead of our alternatives, which just have regular UVs that have been interpolated correctly. We're also using our vertex lighting here. And then the fog calculation will be done down here, which you can see. This is the color of our fog. Normally this would be passed in using like a uniform or something, but in this case, it's just faster to do it this way and to hard code it in. But it's mixed in with our result, and that gives us our fog color.